The afternoon sun scorched the cracked pavement of a small Arizona town as engines roared past the dusty diner. A group of bikers, rough in appearance, but calm in their own way, parked their Harleys in front of the Desert Eagle diner. Their leather vests bore the mark of the Iron Hawks, a name that made most people step aside when they walked in. But today something else caught their attention before they even reached the door. Across the street, a little boy stood beside an old rusted bicycle that was far too small for him. He couldn't have been older than 8 or 9. His shirt was torn at the sleeve, and the dust on his cheeks couldn't hide the dried tear lines. He clutched the handlebars tightly, glancing nervously at every passing car as if gathering courage to speak. When the bikers crossed the road, the smallest among them, a giant of a man named Deez, noticed the boy stepping toward him. "Hey kid, what's up?" Diesel asked, his voice deep but gentle. The boy swallowed hard. "Sir, would you buy my bike?" Diesel frowned. "Your bike? Why would I do that, kid?" The boy looked down, twisting his fingers around the chain. "Mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." His voice trembled. We don't have anything left, not even bread." For a moment, no one said a word. The sound of the engines idling behind them felt distant compared to the weight of that little voice. Diesel crouched down to the boy's level. "What's your name, champ?" "Eli," he said quietly. "All right, Eli, where's your mom now?" He pointed to a small broken trailer at the edge of the dirt lot. The window was shattered and the front door hung crooked. "She's inside. She's sick." The bikers exchanged uneasy looks. People often saw them as outlaws, but underneath the tattoos and jackets, they were men who had seen hunger, loss, and pain before. Diesel sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, show us." Eli led them across the lot. As they got closer, the smell of stale air and rust filled the space. Inside, a thin woman lay on an old mattress, her face pale and sunken. Her breathing was shallow, and the room was empty, except for a single water bottle and a small box of saltine crackers, already empty. When the woman opened her eyes, she whispered weakly, "Eli, who are these men?" Eli squeezed her hand. "It's okay, Mommy. They're nice. They might buy my bike." Diesel felt a lump rise in his throat. "Ma'am," he said gently, "we don't need your boy's bike. We're going to help you." But she shook her head weakly. "No, can't take charity. You're not," Diesel replied firmly. "You're giving us a reason to do something right today." The group immediately moved into action. One went to get food from the diner, another to fetch water and medicine from their truck. Within minutes, the small trailer filled with the smell of warm food. Eli watched as his mother sat up for the first time in days, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Thank you." But while the others smiled, Diesel's mind kept spinning. Something didn't feel right. He noticed faint bruises on her wrists, a small envelope tucked behind the mattress, and a half-burned eviction notice near the stove. Whoever had done this to her hadn't just left her to starve, they had taken everything. As the bikers stepped outside later that afternoon, Diesel turned to the others. "We're not done here," he said quietly. "Why?" asked Hunter, the group's second in command. Diesel's jaw tightened. "Because someone made sure that woman and her kid ended up like this. Now I'm going to find out who." Inside the trailer, Eli looked out the window as the engines roared to life. His small voice whispered, "Mommy, do you think they'll come back?" She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "I think they will, baby. I think they will." That night, under the hum of streetlights and the desert wind, Diesel pulled out his phone and called an old contact from the sheriff's office. "I need you to run a name," he said. "A woman and her son living in a trailer off Route 9. I have a feeling this isn't just bad luck." On the other end, the voice paused. "Diesel, you sure you want to dig into this?" "Yeah," Diesel replied, "because sometimes the people who have nothing are the ones who lost everything to someone who thought they'd never be caught." He ended the call, his eyes narrowing into the distance. The Iron Hawks had helped strangers before, but this time it felt personal, and none of them had any idea how deep this story would go. The next morning, the desert air was thick with heat as Diesel and the Iron Hawks rolled out toward town. The engines echoed against the empty hills, a low thunder that carried the weight of something more than just a ride. Diesel's mind was on Eli and his mother, on her fragile smile, the bruises and the fear she tried so hard to hide. They stopped outside the sheriff's office. Diesel removed his sunglasses and stepped in, his heavy boots thudding against the tile floor. Sheriff Mason, an old friend from his military days, looked up from his desk. "Well, I'll be damned," Mason said. "Didn't expect to see you in here again?" Diesel didn't smile. "You got that report I asked for?" Mason nodded and slid a folder across the desk. Diesel opened it. Inside was a photo of the woman. Her name was Grace Turner. The file showed a history of eviction notices, unpaid wages, and a lawsuit filed against a local construction magnate named Carl Henson. "Henson," Diesel muttered. "That the same guy who owns half this town now?" "Yeah," Mason said. "Grace worked for him. His company went bankrupt last year, or so he claimed. She sued him for unpaid salary and damages. Next thing you know, her trailer gets broken into, her savings disappear, and she's out on the street." Diesel slammed the folder shut. "You're telling me this rich coward took everything from her and got away with it?" Mason sighed. The case went cold. No witnesses, no money trail. And let's just say Henson's got friends in the right places. Diesel leaned over the desk. Then it's time he had enemies in the wrong ones. Outside, the Iron Hawks were waiting. When Diesel told them what he'd learned, the men's expressions hardened. They weren't saints far from IT, but they had a code. You don't hurt the innocent. Hunter cracked his knuckles. "So what's the plan, boss?" Diesel looked toward the horizon. "We find Henson, and we make sure Grace gets back what's hers." That evening, they rode to the edge of town, where Henson's luxury estate stood behind iron gates. The mansion glowed under soft lights, a world away from Grace's broken trailer. They parked their bikes nearby and slipped into the woods. Diesel's eyes moved with focus, scanning every detail of the guards, the cameras, the massive glass windows reflecting the desert sunset. When one of the guards stepped away for a smoke, Diesel motioned to Hunter. They moved fast and quiet, slipping through the gate and into the back garden. The sound of laughter drifted from the pool area. Henson stood there wearing a white linen shirt, surrounded by people who clearly had no idea or didn't care how he'd made his money. Diesel clenched his jaw. "That's him." Hunter's voice was low. "You sure you want to do this here?" Diesel shook his head. "Not yet. We're not here to start a fight. We're here for proof." He crept closer to the house, his boots silent on the stone path. Through the window, he saw a safe built into the wall behind Henson's office desk. Hunter snapped a quick photo. "We get inside tonight, we'll know what he's hiding." Before they could retreat, Henson's voice carried over the music. "I don't pay people to lose me lawsuits," he barked at a nervous-looking man. "If she wanted justice, she should have married rich instead of working for it." The guests laughed. Diesel froze. That sentence hit harder than a bullet. The cruelty wasn't just in what Henson did, was in the way he enjoyed it. When they got back to their bikes, Diesel's voice was calm but firm. "Tomorrow, we're coming back. At this time, not empty-handed." The next day, they brought Grace a proper breakfast and medicine. Eli hugged Diesel, his small arms clutching his vest. "Did you find out who took Mommy's money?" Diesel nodded. "We did, little man. Don't you worry, we're working on it." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You've already done so much," she whispered. "You don't owe us anything." Diesel knelt beside her. "Oh, ma'am. But he owes you, and we're going to make sure he pays every last cent that night." The Iron Hawks prepared for what they called a justice run. Black leather jackets, flashlights, gloves. They weren't breaking the law, they were correcting it. As the desert night settled in, the bikers' engines roared again, echoing across the open plain like thunder announcing a storm. And this storm was heading straight for Carl Henson. The night air was heavy with tension as the Iron Hawks coasted down the hill toward Carl Henson's mansion. The sound of their engines faded to a soft growl before they cut them off, parking under the shadows of twisted oak trees. Diesel removed his helmet, his eyes fixed on the glowing house below. "This isn't about revenge," he said quietly. "It's about setting something right." Hunter gave a grim nod. "Then let's do it right." They split up. Two Hawks disabled the cameras, their flashlights flickering briefly before darkness swallowed the property. Diesel and Hunter slipped through a side door Henson's staff had forgotten to lock. The smell of cigar smoke and expensive whiskey clung to the air. Inside, everything screamed wealth-imported rugs, crystal glasses, portraits of Henson shaking hands with politicians. Diesel moved with purpose, scanning the office walls until his flashlight landed on the safe. "There it is," Hunter whispered. Diesel reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small stethoscope, something he had Dan T used since his army days. Within minutes, the lock clicked open. Inside were stacks of documents, envelopes of cash, and a hard drive labeled Turner case files. Diesel's jaw tightened. He kept everything. Every dollar he stole, every file he forged. They gathered the evidence, snapping photos and transferring digital copies. But before they could leave, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. "Someone's coming," Hunter hissed. Diesel ducked behind the door just as Carl Henson entered, muttering to himself and holding a glass of scotch. He went straight to the safe only to find it open. His face turned pale. What, the Diesel stepped out from the shadows? "Evening, Mr. Henson." Henson nearly dropped his glass. "Who the hell are you?" "Doesn't matter," Diesel said evenly. "What matters is that you've been robbing people, good people who trusted you. It took everything from a woman named Grace Turner." Recognition flickered across Henson's face. Then arrogance replaced fear. Oh, her. She was a fool. Signed contracts she didn't read. "That's not theft. That's business." Diesel's fists clenched. "You call it business. I call it cowardice." Henson sneered. "What do you want?" "Money. I can pay you to walk away." Diesel leaned closer. "You already owe someone money. I'll pay her instead." When Henson tried to push past him, Diesel caught his arm and twisted it, forcing him to his knees. "Tomorrow morning you'll go to the bank. I'll transfer every cent that belongs to her and you'll leave this town. Because if I ever hear you touched another working soul again..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. By sunrise, Grace woke to the rumble of engines outside her trailer. The Iron Hawks stood in a line, their bikes gleaming under the pale light. "Oh." Diesel handed her an envelope. She looked confused. "What's this?" "Your money," Diesel said. "Every penny." "With interest." Tears filled Grace's eyes as she opened the envelope and saw the balance, more than enough to buy a new home. More than enough to start over. Eli clutched his mother's arm, smiling for the first time in weeks. "I don't understand," Grace whispered. "How could you? Why would you?" Diesel smiled faintly, because no mother should have to hide from the world to feed her son. "You gave that boy everything, and he still believes the world's good. That means you did something right." The bikers turned to leave, but Eli ran after Diesel and tugged his jacket. "Are you angels?" he asked. Diesel knelt down, smiling softly. "Not even close, kid. We just try to make things fair again." The boy hugged him tight. Diesel froze for a second, then patted his back gently before standing up. Grace called out, "Wait. I can't let you go without thanking you properly." Diesel shook his head. "You already did. You reminded us what real strength looks like," as the Iron Hawks roared away into the sunrise. Grace stood there, holding her son, the wind lifting her hair. For the first time in years, she felt hope again. Later that afternoon, the local news broadcast showed Carl Henson's mansion under investigation. Anonymous evidence had been submitted, proving years of fraud and exploitation. The reporter's voice said, "Authorities have confirmed the assets will be returned to victims. Source of the evidence remains unknown." Grace smiled as she watched the screen. She didn't need to know who sent it. She already knew. In the desert, the Iron Hawks rode together under a sky painted in gold and fire. Diesel glanced at the horizon, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Some battles weren't about glory. They were about decency. And for men like him, that was enough. If you believe kindness can change lives, share this story.